Hey guys, this is Caustra here, and today I bring the long-awaited 8th episode of GD Science. I know, it's been a really long time since I did one of these, but I'm bringing it back. I wasn't happy with the most recent episodes because I felt like they didn't have enough science in them, so I took the extra time to bring it back to its roots. Today, we're going to talk about something that I bet a good portion of you will be able to relate to. I'm talking about the mass epidemic in GD. So massive, it makes the Black Plague and Ebola look like the common cold. I'm just kidding, obviously, but we need to talk here. Generic levels. Oh god, where to even start with these? The lack of good block deco. The mediocre to underperforming gameplay. I'm dying! Anyways, these levels have just absolutely been plaguing the featured levels recently, and now that more and more creators are adopting this style, less good and original levels are being released, and that's a problem for obvious reasons. I did some research yesterday to find out about 65% of levels in the featured section nowadays are at least semi-generic. That's a really large portion, because that's the section of levels that are basically just the same stuff to a different layout every time. It's completely unoriginal, and when there are so many talented yet unrecognized creators out there that are better than the 65% of the featured section, that's just sad. For those who are unaware, a generic level basically looks like a normal level, but it has fairly primitive block decoration, overusage of the glow effects, and uses that pinwheel effect for the background a lot. You've most likely seen a few of them, or a lot of them, because they're everywhere. To give a good example, I'm going to take a short section of a layout and decorate it to look like a generic level, just to show how effortless it is. You see? Look how easy that was. This is the problem here. Creators would rather make these abominations than to actually put effort into something. It's no secret the community doesn't like these levels, but yet they still continue. They are completely annihilating the creating aspect of this game. And yes, I do know that some generic levels can look good, but really, I honestly think only about 15-20% of these generic levels actually look any good. I can understand why it's done to a certain degree, because the rule of efficiency states that if something can be done in a less consumptive manner, it eventually will. And that's what people are applying to GD now with level making. But it's the wrong idea. Levels aren't something you just push out as soon as possible to get creator points. They're supposed to be something that you take pride in making, much like art or music. You get the idea. They're supposed to take time, and they're supposed to showcase your own style and originality, not this super generic mess. I feel like the reason this is such a big deal is not because of the problem, but the solution. And by the solution, I mean the fact that for the first time on GD Science, there isn't one, or at least a viable solution. Since the idea of whether generic levels can exist or not depends purely on the players of this game, there isn't any one way to purge this problem. Since I feel like the last few episodes of this show haven't really been that much based around science, it's time I bring it back to its roots. Now that you've had a brief introduction to the dilemma in the GD community, let's talk about some of the effects it can have on the community and on the individuals of the community. So first off, I want to talk about the psychological effects of it, as I'm pretty sure by now you can tell I love talking about the psychology of Geometry Dash. This trend doesn't seem like much at first glance, but it's actually playing on something called the repetition principle. Basically, it's a principle that states, if something happens often enough, you will eventually like it. What this means is that when more and more people play these levels, the more tolerant they become to them, and thus it allows more and more of these levels to be featured. It's a vicious cycle that abuses how your brain interprets repetition and exposure. On paper, it doesn't sound like much, but when you take a look at the bigger picture, it's a subtle yet disturbing thing. Essentially, we're being brainwashed into tolerating and accepting these levels as good, and this only allows more and more of them to make their way into the featured pages. This is bad news for all the really original and talented creators out there. More generic levels equals less creative levels, plain and simple. Another force at play here is the bandwagon effect, and I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with this term. Basically, it's the idea that when someone starts to do something, more and more people eventually join in, and the more people that join in makes it more likely for more people to join in. Another endless cycle. What I'm attempting to demonstrate with this is that more and more creators are making levels with this. It used to be only a select few, but if you pop in the featured page right now, there are so many more creators making generic levels than there were 3 months ago. This is mostly attributed to the bandwagon effect. The final factor is the simplest one to explain, and that's humanity's greedy nature. When people find an exploit in a system, people are very, very likely to use and abuse it. That's the case with Geometry Dash and creator points. When people have to put less effort to get more reward, of course they're going to do it, regardless of its morale or not. It's very obvious that creator points are in high demand in Geometry Dash. But now, thanks to this new trend, it's creating a convergence of these creator points to less and less creators. At the moment, I don't really see any viable fix for all this. There are a few ways of fixing it, but I don't really think that any of them are all that viable. For example, in the next update, RobTop could make a feature that logs how long you've worked on levels, and for a level to get rated or featured, you would need to have been working on it for a certain period of time. But, as you can already foresee, that would only create more problems than actually fixing them. And that's the case for all the solutions at the moment. I hate to say it, but we're essentially screwed. There really isn't any way to get rid of these levels unless we all just decide to mutually agree to stop making them. But considering the past of Geometry Dash and its community and how easy drama starts here, I'd probably win the lottery first. Anyways, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I'm sorry it took super long to push out. There will definitely be more on the way very soon. Peace.